Taker's Keepers actually got quite intense at one moment. I wasn't expecting it. This is the first segment of the 10th episode of the first season of Baby Looney Tunes, and Taz has this new toy that I think he is calling Hairy Scary. It's kind of hard to hear what he's saying, but it's this little kind of caveman character, and it moves its arm up and down, and Daffy thinks it looks pretty cool. So when Taz is not looking, Daffy snatches the toy from him and runs off and hides it, and Taz wasn't aware of what happened. He just thinks he's lost it, and the other babies all rally around to help him look for it. And meanwhile, Daffy is trying to play with it, but every time he tries to play with it, obviously it's quite a noisy toy, the babies all come rushing because they hear it, and Daffy just points in a different direction and says the sound was coming from that way. And I have to say, it really amused me watching the babies all run towards him again and again and again, because the distance they travelled kept getting further and further, and I found it to be quite funny. And then something happens, Daffy does something to the toy, and I genuinely thought, how is he going to get out of this? Because I know what's going to happen. But I'll discuss that with a spoiler warning in a moment. The message here, of course, is that you shouldn't take something that isn't yours. But there's also a message about sharing, and that if Daffy had just asked Taz if he could play with the toy, chances are Taz, being the nice little child that he is, would have said yes, and he would have shared the toy with Daffy. But ultimately, it's about not taking things that don't belong to you. And honestly, the toy doesn't even look that interesting. It just does one thing, basically. But, you know, young children are fascinated by things like that. I really enjoyed it. So the intense bit, I guess a spoiler from now. So what Daffy actually does, and this is a big spoiler because I genuinely didn't see it coming, and I had no idea. I knew what was going to happen, but I didn't know how they'd get out of this situation. Daffy hides this toy in a trash can that's on the curb, and they all go back inside, and I just knew the trash was going to be collected, and it was, and the toy was gone. And I genuinely thought, how are you going to resolve this? You have lost Taz's current favourite toy forever. But what Taz does, I thought was brilliant and really entertaining. I won't completely spoil it by saying what Taz does, or what he makes Daffy do, but I thought it was pretty clever and really clever of Taz. So a fun episode, definitely more dramatic than I was expecting, and with some pretty important messages baked right into there too. Taker's Keepers is definitely a good episode.